Hey everyone, and welcome back. When I saw The Dig on your list of sources, I was immediately intrigued. A LucasArts adventure game, but with like a Steven Spielberg twist.
Yeah.
That's not your typical point and click. Looks like we've got articles and game reviews and like the whole shebang. Let's fire up our shovels and dig into this one.
Yeah, the Spielberg connection is really key here. It's fascinating how The Dig, it actually started as a potential episode for Amazing Stories, but Spielberg, he quickly realized that the concept was way too ambitious for television. Just like trying to depict a future where, get this, archaeologists unearthed Disneyland on a TV budget in the 80s.
Okay, now I'm hooked. Disneyland is like an archaeological site
Oh,
in the future.
That's brilliant. So how did this Spielbergian vision even become a video game?
Well, it seems that playing LucasArts' Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade game, that actually gave Spielberg the idea. Like he saw how video games could handle these huge, larger-than-life stories. You sent over some details about this meeting at Skywalker Ranch where Spielberg pitched The Dig to George Lucas. It's kind of wild to think this happened on the same day as the 1989 San Francisco earthquake. What a start to a project.
Seriously, talk about an unforgettable brainstorming session. It sounds like Spielberg really wanted to capture that classic sci-fi mystery vibe, like from films like Forbidden Planet, but also explore the greed and the human drama that you find in The Treasure of the Sierra Madre. A pretty unique blend for a LucasArts adventure game, don't you think?
Definitely. And, reading through your notes, I was surprised that it took 6 years to develop this game. That's a long time, even for a game with such a big vision. What caused those delays?
Well, The Dig went through some major changes over the years. Initially, it was going to be this game with RPG elements and survival elements, so you're stranded, and desperately searching for food and water while you're trying to unravel the secrets of a lost civilization.
Wow, that does sound really ambitious. But I guess they eventually shifted to the more traditional point and click. What made them change direction?
Well, it seems the team, which included 4 different project leads over the years, they decided to streamline the gameplay. But Spielberg's core idea, that stayed the same. You've got astronauts, they're on this mission to blow up an asteroid that's heading toward Earth. But they end up on a mysterious planet called Cocytus. What are your first impressions of the premise?
It sounds like classic sci-fi, but with a good dose of mystery thrown in.
Mm.
So who are these astronauts that we'll be playing as in this adventure?
So you have Commander Boston Lowe, and he's voiced by Robert Patrick, from Terminator 2. He's the tough, no-nonsense leader. Then there's Dr. Ludger Brink, the archaeologist and geologist. A little more serious, Indiana Jones, I guess. And then you've got Maggie Robbins. She's a journalist who's not afraid to question authority.
Oh, I can already see some potential conflicts brewing here. The stern commander, the driven scientist, and the skeptical reporter. It's got to be a recipe for some great character dynamics, especially when they're trapped on an alien world.
From what you've read, it sounds like The Dig takes a darker, more introspective approach compared to the humor that's typical of LucasArts games. What do you think?
Absolutely. This isn't a game with wisecracking heroes. It's a group of people facing this very real weight of responsibility and, the psychological effects of isolation. I mean, they're carrying the fate of humanity on their shoulders, all while trying to survive on this alien planet. That's some heavy stuff.
And then you have the planet itself, Cocytus. It's this hauntingly beautiful place, deserted landscapes, almost like those classic sci-fi book covers.
Yeah, from the images and reviews you sent, it definitely has that evocative feel, almost otherworldly. And those abandoned alien cities, it really makes you wonder what happened to the civilization that used to live there.
Right, like that mystery, the fate of the previous inhabitants of Cocytus, that seems to be at the heart of this game. And then there are those life crystals with their strange properties. But I think maybe we should save that for later. What do you think?
Agreed. We've got a lot to cover still. But before we get into those mysteries, maybe we should take a look at these astronauts and the challenges that they're facing. What kind of personalities are they bringing to this situation, and how do they clash?
Yeah, it's really interesting to see how each of them react to all the pressure. You've got Lowe, the commander, very pragmatic, focused on the mission, skeptical of anything that doesn't fit into his, I guess you could say, military worldview. And then there's Brink, the scientist, driven by curiosity, eager to unlock Cocytus' secrets, even if it means bending the rules a little.
And then we've got Robbins, right? The journalist. Seems like she acts as this voice of reason, questioning what they're doing, reminding them about the bigger picture. You mentioned in your notes that there's tension between Lowe and Robbins, almost right away when they get to the planet.
It's like this classic clash of perspectives, You've got Lowe, the military man. He values order and control. Robbins, on the other hand, She's all about the truth, even if it means challenging authority. And their whole dynamic becomes even more complicated when those life crystals come into the picture.
Right. You mentioned earlier that these life crystals have these crazy properties. They can actually bring people back from the dead. And that's a pretty mind-blowing concept.
Absolutely, it's a total game changer, literally and figuratively. The life crystals introduce this a whole new level of moral dilemmas. Like, how do you even decide who gets a second chance at life? What are the consequences of messing with death, in the long run? These are questions that the game really makes you think about.
It's interesting how the characters react to this power, right?
Yeah.
Brink, the scientist, he gets almost obsessed with these crystals, but Robbins, she's cautious, even skeptical. I feel like she understands how dangerous it could be to play God like that.
Yeah, she's definitely the moral compass of the group. She keeps urging them to be careful, reminding them of the possible consequences, and that skepticism of hers actually leads to her, well, tragic fate.
That's rough. But I guess it shows how high the stakes are in this story. This isn't just about solving puzzles and getting off an alien planet. It's about the choices these characters make and how those choices affect them and, affect humanity. Now, you mentioned that the puzzles in this game are known for being hard. I keep seeing this one puzzle mentioned in the reviews, the bone puzzle. Can you tell me about it? What makes it so hard?
Yeah, so without spoiling anything, it involves putting together this skeleton of an alien creature. It takes a really good eye for detail and a lot of patience. Some people thought it was too obscure and frustrating, but others really liked the challenge. And it ties into the whole exploration of life and death, which is cool.
And then there's the lunar lander minigame that's built right into their communicator. It's like a little fun throwback, right? Seems like the devs were just having some fun with that one.
Totally. It's this cool little detail. Adds some humor and nostalgia to a game that's otherwise pretty serious. It's just a reminder of that time in gaming when those little surprises were more common.
It's amazing to think that The Dig, even with all its development troubles and the mixed reviews it got, it's become a cult classic. Why do you think it still resonates with people?
I think it's the story, the themes, and even those hard puzzles. It makes you think about these big questions, Humanity, morality, the meaning of life, all within this awesome science fiction world.
It's a game that definitely sticks with you. The visuals, the music, the characters, it all creates this really memorable experience. There's one thing I haven't seen talked about much in these articles, though.
Oh, yeah. What's that?
The civilization that made the life crystals. We know they abandoned the planet, but why? They didn't just get rid of the technology. They went to a higher plane of existence. They didn't even need physical bodies anymore.
That's a good point. And what's even crazier is that the alien who stayed behind to warn others about the crystals, he actually wanted to die. He saw it as a natural part of life, not something to be afraid of.
Yeah, that's deep, especially since this game is so focused on immortality. It kind of makes you wonder, could it be that The Dig is like a cautionary tale? About, our obsession with immortality. Like, what if instead of being afraid of dying, we should, I don't know, embrace it as just part of life?
That's an interesting take for sure. A lot of sci-fi is all about the benefits of living longer, but The Dig seems to be looking at the other side of that. Maybe there's something to be said for accepting that our time is limited,
Right. Like this alien civilization, they chose to move beyond the physical, almost like they outgrew immortality. It makes you wonder if Spielberg is saying that technology can only take us so far when it comes to life and death.
Yeah, maybe he's saying that real immortality is something we can't even understand yet. It's out there, but it's not about our bodies. And it's interesting how that alien who stayed behind actually longed for death. He saw it as a release, not a bad thing.
That's a powerful message, especially in a world that's obsessed with being young forever. Maybe The Dig, with all the sci-fi stuff, is really a story about, appreciating the moment you're in.
I think you're right. It reminds us that life, even though it's fragile, is something to be grateful for. Maybe the real treasure isn't living forever, but the experiences we have and the connections we make while we're here.
It's a message that really resonates, especially in this game. I mean, you have these astronauts facing death. They're stuck on this alien planet. They have to save humanity. And even with all that, they still find moments of connection, compassion, even love.
It just shows how good a storyteller Spielberg is. Even in a game about the unknown, he never forgets about the human side of things. The Dig reminds us that even when we're facing death, there's still beauty and meaning and hope.
We've definitely uncovered some deep stuff today. Who knew that a LucasArts adventure game could lead to such interesting conversations? It goes to show that sometimes the most surprising sources can make you think about the biggest questions.
I've really enjoyed digging into the dig with you. You can tell this game had a real impact on you. It's such a unique experience, one that makes you question everything you thought you knew about life and death and what it all means.
As we wrap things up, I'm left with a feeling of wonder and just a real appreciation for how powerful stories can be. So to our listener out there, as you play through the dig, remember to pay attention and be curious and open to the messages the game is trying to share. Who knows what you might discover? Until next time, keep exploring.